Hello and welcome to My Security TV and our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor with My Security Media. And today we're joined by Motorola Solutions and Rhys Clare, the Director for Asia Pacific Channel Solutions. And this is a lead up to a webinar session that we're running next week with Motorola. And in particular, we're going to be looking at actionable intelligence for enterprise and infrastructure and discussing, or at least giving you an introduction to the Motorola Solutions ecosystem and their safety reimagined explained. Let's bring on Rhys Clare. Rhys, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here.
Very good. And maybe introduce us to Motorola Solutions first, because it's one of those brands that most people will know, but it's quite a broad technology company now as well, and with a lot of pedigree, quite a number of years behind it. And then we'll get into the orchestrated platform that you have and a lead up to next week's session with Motorola Solutions. So yeah, just an introduction to the company itself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. So look, Motorola Solutions, we've been around for over 90 years now. And over those 90 years, we've been developing mission critical communications for both public safety and enterprises. But today our portfolio is a lot broader than just voice. You know, we have an extensive range of video analytics and security and also operational software management. So today we basically bring all that together in a connected ecosystem, which is what we call Safety Reimagined.
Now, the platform itself can be deployed across market verticals. We talked about enterprise and infrastructure. Is that part of the challenge now with digital transformation and being able to not just integrate systems, but get some intelligence out of them and sort of that rules-based outcome approach?
Yeah, well, look, I think what we've seen over the years is, you know, a lot of the platforms have been purchased in silos. So what we've done with our Safety Reimagined vision is given an ability to create this connected ecosystem across multiple platforms. I think the most important thing for our customers, though, is how meaningful that data is when we actually deliver it to them. You know, is it going to mean anything to them? And I always like to say, you know, what you can measure, you can manage. And often that's at the customer level is, you know, what can I actually do with that data? So what we do at Motorola is we give an ability to deliver all these different forms of data on a single pane of glass, which does offer some deliverable outcomes for our customers.
Now, I imagine the people that you tend to be dealing with are the safety managers, security managers, operation managers. They're really the end client at the moment in terms of this platform, because you're talking video, audio, any kind of data point that's collecting data or analyzing data. Is that part of the challenge because it's applicable across so many market verticals?
Yeah, well, look, I think the users vary, whether it's a user in a retail, actually someone on the front line, so to speak, or someone in the back office that's looking at that data, you know, because it often comes down to the quality of the experience of the people. So whether you are the person with a device in your hands, or you're in a retail environment, or in a facilities management, or a manufacturing plant, but the people in the back end also, you know, they're also got to look at that data and, you know, how they can actually use it in a meaningful way. So what we've, you know, developed is an ability to create workflows inside a given environment, which are rules based. So for example, if there is say unusual motion detection on a perimeter and it's 9 o'clock at night, we can develop a rule in our system that says send an alert to a radio user, right? And then that might appear as a text or a text to speech coming through the device. But at the same time, we want that sent to the operations center, the command and control, or to an offsite manager who might be on duty.
Yeah.
So we all of a sudden give the safety aspect of it, which is most important, but also drive that productivity and efficiency.
I think that's where the thinking comes in and is necessary from that planning and that operational approach. I think to give a sense of the scale and what can be integrated, maybe just talk us through, because it requires a bit of different thinking, and we talked about that actionable intelligence. Really, that is the part of it, understanding what data sets are there. And then the secret sauce for this one really is how to make it all work and talk to each other.
Yeah, and look, so Safety Reimagined, what we're looking at now, that is our vision of creating this hub and spoke approach. So what we can see here is, as I mentioned earlier, often siloed technology decisions. What we're able to do is then interconnect them. So and what it ultimately gives our customers is a connected ecosystem now. So what was once siloed that didn't talk to each other can now talk to each other. We normally start as a baseline for voice and video. That becomes the baseline, and then we actually start adding the additional layers to that, or so to speak, the building blocks. What actually brings it all together is in our cloud platform called Orchestrate. So whilst we've got what potentially is either an on-prem or a hybrid deployed infrastructure, we then interoperate and integrate that through our cloud platform called Orchestrate, which delivers us all of those workflows and rules-based outcomes.
And part of what we're going to be looking at next week is the some market verticals and some case studies and how this actually can be deployed, specifically looking at manufacturing, utilities, healthcare, aviation. So really that infrastructure approach, what's involved, I suppose, in terms of that integration. That's again part of that ecosystem approach. You might have a video system there. You might have a sort of migrated from analog over to digital. Working with your partners and the APIs, you can start to bring on board new technologies that are in the business and getting them to literally have a bit of intelligence and action associated with them.
Yeah. So what we try to do is identify what the customer problem is first, because I think that always is how do we develop around the customer problem. Take utilities as a really good example. So out in the field where they might be water or a power utilities, and they're trying to fix a device out in the field. We've got body-worn camera as part of our Safety Reimagined portfolio. So now we can actually deliver a live stream back into a command center or a network operations center where you can now, support people in the field in real time. So that's a really good example of the problem that we're solving is, we can actually bring in people anywhere in the world and help support someone in the field.
I think that's the other part here is you can have different orchestrate systems talking to each other as well, right? So there's a lot often with sort of satellite facilities and other areas, you can have multiple systems talking to each other as well.
That's right. Well, the great thing about when we utilize IP is just a bearer, really. It can be LTE, it can be wide area network, it can be a local area network, or it could be satellite. So a lot of these technologies have the ability to be sent over IP today, particularly in the video space.
Now, this is a sort of lead up to next week. We're going to be joined by Victor Nigem, who's the Strategic Solutions Specialist with Motorola, and he's based in the US. And we're going to be looking at learning how to sort of deploy this actionable intelligence for enterprise and infrastructure. Maybe just talk us through the kind of case studies that we're going to be looking at. I mentioned the key areas, but what kind of sort of examples will this session provide?
Yeah, well, look, I think what's really relevant for us is the last 18 months, COVID, right? COVID's changed a lot of what our customer problems were. They've had to adapt. And again, it's all driven around the safety of their staff. We'll be talking about one particular case study. It's actually not inside utilities, it's in forestry,
right,
where we have an operator in New Zealand that went from paper-based forms, went through that digital transformation journey and now do digital forms over their radio network. And that was all based on, entering a site, not sharing, paperwork between different staff and solving their problem at the time. So we're seeing, a lot of change happening within enterprise today. Some of it's driven around COVID and others driven around that whole digital transformation requirement.
Well, it's not just the digital transformation that we've seen, but workplaces have fundamentally changed as well as a result of COVID and the pandemic. And now they're bringing their people back. We've had people come back to work, lockdown, come back to work. Now we're moving into a hybrid environment. And again, these types of platforms are ideal for their deployment right now. This is where that new hybrid, new way of working, this is where you really have that opportunity to start to integrate and deploy these platforms. So this is going to be next Thursday. As I mentioned, we're going to be joined by Victor Nigem, the Strategic Solutions Specialist. Rhys Clare will join us once again, the Director, Asia Pacific Channel Solutions. And we're going to be looking at the actionable intelligence for enterprise and infrastructure, Thursday, 28th of October, 11:30 a.m. That's Sydney, Australian Eastern Standard Daylight Saving Time. So looking forward to it, Rhys, and thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks, Chris. See you next week.
Good man. Look forward to it.
Cheers.